So going back a bit, there were a number of things I wanted to go back to. One is the, let's say, dialectic between the anti-labor, anti-demonstration, let's say, possibilities that are given to a state during a war, and its interaction, however, with the opposite that you were mentioning, which is the networking and the taking of the center stage of workers in a situation of war. And afterwards, I would like to know a little bit more about that. Before, however, while we were on the topic of of popular support, I wanted to link to what Aleski said about, for example, the drones, and I wanted to connect to the crowdfunding aspect and to what specifically and to this volunteering aspect of support to the armed force, because I think it's a topic that is really, really alien for us. It's really difficult to understand, not from a moral perspective, but from a practical perspective. So first of all, I'm sharing in the chat, and this is for us, not for you, the post from Solidarity Collective about the collection of funding for, I think, electronic warfare system against drones. Maybe Aleski can explain a bit more. And if you can tell us something about the actual impact of these things, because the only idea that we have of war is industrial, so to speak, in which people are almost irrelevant and the crowdfunding is not a thing. And then after, if Aleski wants to share something about this, and then I would go back to you, Dennis, with this question I mentioned earlier, plus another couple.
Yeah, about the war and how it's sometimes not industrial. Yeah. Right now, this war is a war that wasn't fought before, and it's a war of technologies, and we can see that, for example, maybe I think from very beginning of full-scale invasion, soldiers they had a lot of commercial drones like Mavic and Autel, and they basically were used for reconnaissance. But the grassroots initiatives started to produce systems for these drones to drop grenades from. So you can take grenade and put it underneath the drone and fly over the vehicle or a tank and drop it on top of it. And it wasn't produced on an industrial scale. It was produced by some interested people, like activists. They were printing it on 3D printers, and buying some electronics from China, and then it mutated, and we started to make a drone with that can hold, for example, like a rocket from RPG, and you can really precisely hit a tank or a vehicle with that. And also, it was made by it was made by military guys or volunteers, and then it started to scale up. So the big game-changing technologies and big game changers were created were created from below, and yes, it took a lot of time so the industrial complex and government would see that as efficient and pick up it. But because when you do it in a small scale, and when you do it with just like small team of volunteers or soldiers who have some time and knowledge, they can do it they can go through stages really fast. Like you iterate really fast, and you come up with something that works on a basic practical level. Yeah, that's and that's the reality of modern war, because right now this type of weapon, maybe you can call it a guided missile, like FPV drone with a rocket or grenade. It's something that it's like other people in different places, they see how it's how efficient it is, and the war won't be the same. Like it's the way how it's gonna be in the future. And so also we need like Russians use these weapons the same way we do. So we need some protection, and that's why we are right now collecting money for electronic warfare. It's stations that can cut the radio signals from the drone and to the drone, like enemy drones. So it saves lives of our soldiers, of our comrades.
Thank you. So for about this, I shared in the chat the post that whoever is interested can also find on the Facebook page Solidarity Collectives and on the Facebook page Sinistra per l'Ucraina for the funding. And yeah, everybody obviously is welcome to contribute. Did you wanted to add something else on the topic? If you don't, first of all, thank you, because as I mentioned earlier, this is an aspect of your activism which I think people need to know more about. So thank you for sharing. Now, if going back to the more geopolitical picture, so to speak, even if I started to loathe the term, but when we were talking about funding now from states rather than from people, I was personally recently, I honestly, let's say, I used to be looking very closely to the aid packages and what was going on and the debate, etc., etc. Lately, I didn't so much for a combination of factors, which now is irrelevant. But what I understood was that two main topics and sources of funding, well, three. Okay, there is the European support. The European support is getting pledged and repledged. It's not great compared to the American, and it's being used mostly by Orban as a basically political tool, and is now lobbying to basically have one veto option per year or something like that. Then there is the American funding, which is, if I understood correctly, now in a bit of a limbo, in which, again, as you mentioned, then is Republicans are basically trying to use it as a bargaining chip to obtain other things that are relevant for them. Finally, there is what grail of retribution, which would be the famed 300 billions of freezed Russian assets being redirected to Ukraine. If that's something you would like to talk about, of of either one of you, your take on this very simplified picture I introduced, and in particular, I was curious on how much, for example, the Russian asset thing is seen as realistic, and what forms of what forms of what forms of pressure can be exerted in that direction, because I see it largely absent from a large public discourse. It's more just a thing that gets mentioned and then thrown away.
Yeah, so I haven't heard all the parts of the question because sometimes it was like freezing, I think, but I got the general notion. Yeah, so let's start with the last component. Yes, you mentioned the frozen Russian assets, and this is something that again we and our comrades abroad have been raising this issue from the beginning. Yes, that it's quite natural, yes, to use properties and assets of those people who are connected as part of the ruling Russian elite to Putin's politics and to his military crimes. Yes, that they should be used to neutralize the outcome of that crimes. Yes, for the reconstruction. But ultimately, it seems that this question it's remains still a rather uneasy one, yes, for the ruling classes throughout the world, because this sets a precedent, yes, that your wealth that has been acquired mostly by looting your own people and peoples of other countries, and that is now stored in many cases in fancy Western banks, and even more often if in different offshore, semi-offshore tax havens. Yes, that if we show that we can confiscate this and we can actually use it for the greater justice, for the greater good, then ultimately your own assets who have been acquired in maybe less violent than post-Soviet space in the 90s, but also in a very brutal and exploitative manner, they may at some point be targeted as well. So we, at the other side, we have been campaigning for this as a starting point for a bigger offensive against all of these illegal wealth of the um, um, capitalist oligarchies. Yes, because even in the case with this arrested, frozen, yes, assets, they form only a small chunk of um, the general picture, because there are still enormous number of loopholes, how you can actually hide your wealth, how you can use intermediate companies from Cyprus, from Virgin Islands, and so on, and how ultimately still lots of Russian oligarchs they manage to get out from everything without any pressure. Yes. And we have also a very similar question that goes for the Ukrainian oligarchs, lots of whom are actually abroad. So there is this general consensus inside the Ukrainian society. Yes, Ukrainian oligarchs are despised and hated by everyone. And ultimately, even Zelensky was elected with financial, yes, his campaign, and had financial support of one of the oligarchs, Kolomoisky, and he included people of connected to other oligarchs, to his political party, and to the governments. But ultimately now Kolomoisky is in Ukrainian jail, and Ukrainian prosecution is actually wanting a number of major Ukrainian oligarchs. But ultimately, they feel safe in different Western places. Yes, so we have one oligarch who actually built his wealth on development business in Moscow, and he was even the person with whom Trump was negotiating a possible creation of Trump Tower in Moscow in 2000s. And he has looted, he has stolen so much money from Ukrainian people as well, from the Kyiv metro and so on. But he was granted this golden visa by the extremely, like this anti-migrant Tory government in the UK, that is thinking how to send people to Rwanda, but at the same time who is welcoming all these bloody oligarchs from Eastern Europe or from Middle East, and as great investors. Yes, and he is out of reach of Ukrainian justice. And then you have a guy who is in France. Again, he was originally in Switzerland, and is also wanted for illegal enrichment in Ukraine, but also for his ties with Russian oligarchs. And then you have the oligarch who used to be the head of the Federation of Employers of Ukraine, and he still, I suppose, but he has been in exile for a decade in Vienna. And in order for him to be completely safe, he was granted by the Lukashenko regime not just the citizenship of Belarus, but also he was made a diplomat. Yes, so now he is protected from being reached by Ukrainian judicial system. Yes, and this goes to this question. Yes, that all these guys who actually have been in charge and who drafted this, all the system, not just to enrich themselves, but also to protect them from possible consequences. Yes, that now they use all these legal tricks not to be taken to responsibility, and not for their wealth also not to be confiscated. Yes, so this is something that again we as the left have been repeating for a long time, but it obviously goes against this general status quo in the world, against the general logic of neoliberal capitalism. So this is something that the governments aren't so eager to implement. And regarding this more mainstream discussions, yes, so about the prospects of further financial support from Western governments. Yes, it seems that what we have already seen with the cases of Orban and Fico in Slovakia. So there are these forces who use their like country's nationalism and who they haven't crossed the line, like in the way that they become somehow like quite anti-refugee, for instance, anti-Ukrainian refugee, yes, but they ultimately repeat, parrot everything that is said by the Russian propaganda. So they repeat the general narrative about the war, the Russian-Ukrainian war. So they hope that more of their allies will get to power in Western countries, and of course, all of them very much rely that their beloved beacon of hope, Trump and the Republicans will get into the White House, and then they will be engaged not in this in something like what they like to call culture war or what in the West, and not into these shithole countries like ours. Yes. So this actually makes the question about Ukrainian the ability of Ukrainian state to rely on its own forces even more, or on its own capabilities even more, pressuring. And this is why the problem that we don't have a functioning wartime economy, maybe a bigger scale production in the safer regions, say in the west of Ukraine. So it's a problem, yes, because if the support from foreign countries is diminishing, then ultimately it will lead to actually more casualties on the Ukrainian side, because one good example is what happened to like in back a year ago, yes, previous winter. Russia's goal was to actually freeze Ukrainian cities to death in winter, yes, by destroying the infrastructure of electricity and of the heating. And we had big blackouts. We had lots of hits in lots of major Ukrainian cities. But now when they tried to do similar waves of missile strikes, in some cases even more massive than a year ago, this winter, the interception level of the missiles and of the drones, it's much higher due to the anti-aircraft systems that were provided by European countries and the US. So ultimately, this means that like these weapons, they don't prolong the war as this main pacifist narrative. They actually help to minimize the civilian casualties behind the front line. And the problem is, yes, that there is no genuine intention, yes, to it's often this story is painted as if it's Ukraine that wants to wage the war and Russia is trying to negotiate, but it's Russia that tries to to continue the war, to grab all this land it has already occupied, and possibly even to break through to more land. And they never were going to cede, yes, those lands and those people. Ultimately, it's about the lives of those people who are now under the occupation, or who cannot return home because it's under occupation. Yes, so the question was never about peace or negotiations. The question was whether, like, we agree with this appeasement of aggressor, and ultimately appeasement of aggressor, it doesn't work. It just encourages it and others, because we ultimately see that the Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, it has so much raised the instability in the world, and it made much easier to all other conflicts to occur. So it's a very bad example. Like Iraq war waged by Bush was this sort of precedent, that you can like invade a country and go out without ultimate consequences, but actually bringing huge disaster.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you. I lost you at raised, so 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, so I just was describing how it raised the instability in the world, and how it made the another conflicts more possible and easier.